You are arguing with puppets. You are angry at actors on a screen for reciting lines that you yourself have written for them. Neville Goddard unveiled the most controversial and liberating law governing all human relationships, the principle he called "everyone is you pushed out." This is not a metaphor, this is not spiritual poetry, this is a mechanical law as binding as gravity. It means that no person in your life possesses the independent free will to treat you differently than you believe, in the deepest chambers of your subconscious mind, that you deserve to be treated. If someone is rude to you, distant from you, or stingy with their affection, they are biologically and metaphysically compelled to play that exact role because your subconscious blueprint has transmitted the script directly into their consciousness. They are not choosing to hurt you. They are obeying an invisible command that you issued without knowing you issued it. To change them, you must cease begging them to change. You must stop trying to convince them, manipulate them, or educate them. You must instead rewrite the code inside yourself, for they are mere terminals responding to the signal you broadcast. The pain you feel is the agony of victimization. You have been hurt by others, rejected by those you loved, dismissed by those you respected, and you have walked through life feeling powerless in your relationships, as though you are at the mercy of other people's moods, opinions, and decisions. You have tried everything. You have been kind when they were cruel. You have been patient when they were difficult. You have sacrificed and compromised and bent yourself into shapes that barely resemble your true self, all in the hope that they would finally see you, finally value you, finally give you the love or respect you so desperately crave. And yet, nothing changes. They remain cold, indifferent, or hostile, and you remain trapped in a cycle of frustration and grief. This is the prison of false cause. You are trying to comb the hair of the reflection in the mirror. You stand before the glass, running your fingers through the image's tangled locks, wondering why it does not straighten, why it does not obey. It is futile. The reflection has no hair to comb. The reflection is not the source. It is the effect. Neville Goddard issues a promise that will sound impossible until you test it. If you change your internal self-concept, the silent subconscious belief you hold about who you are and what you deserve, the people around you must change their behavior to match your new internal standing. They have no choice in the matter. The law of projection overrides their personality, their history with you, their conscious intentions, and even their own self-image. When you rise in consciousness, when you claim a new identity within yourself, the external world, including every person in it, must rearrange itself to reflect that new identity back to you. This is not wishful thinking. This is the mechanics of the hall of mirrors in which you live. The outer world is not the cause of your suffering. It is the screen upon which your inner convictions are projected. Change the film, and the screen must display a different image. The very structure of reality dictates that you cannot change another person by addressing them directly. You cannot fix the reflection by touching the glass. The only point of power, the only lever that moves the entire mechanism, is your own consciousness. If someone treats you poorly, it is because you are broadcasting a frequency that says, "I am the kind of person who gets treated poorly." That broadcast is not in your words. It is in your unspoken assumptions, in the way you feel about yourself when no one is watching, in the silent script you run in your mind about your own value and deservingness. When you alter that inner script, the outer actors must learn new lines. In this transmission, we will execute what I call the script rewrite protocol, a precise step-by-step method to telepathically command respect, love, and favorable treatment from anyone in your life by changing your internal standing. You will learn how to stop being a beggar in relationships and become a king issuing decrees. You will discover that every interaction you have ever had was not a negotiation between two free agents, but rather a reflection of the conversation you were having with yourself. The people in your life are not independent operators. They are instruments of the law, delivering back to you the exact energy and assumption you have been holding about yourself. When you change the assumption, the instruments must play a different tune. There is no other possibility. The law does not make exceptions. It does not care about personality, history, or circumstance. It responds only to your state of consciousness. But there is a trap. and it is the reason most people abandon this work before it bears fruit. I call it the echo delay. When you change the script inside yourself, when you revise your self-concept and begin to broadcast a new signal, the old reflection does not vanish immediately. Physical reality operates with a time lag, much like the light from a distant star that continues to reach your eyes long after the star itself has burned out. For days, sometimes weeks, the people around you will continue to behave according to the old script. They will still be cold, dismissive, or unkind because they are merely playing out the momentum of your previous assumption. This is the most dangerous moment in the entire process. If you see the old behavior and react to it, if you allow yourself to feel hurt, angry, or discouraged, you reactivate the old script and cancel out the new one. You must learn to survive the time lag, to walk through the world as though the change has already occurred, even when your senses tell you nothing has shifted. In Part 4, I will teach you exactly how to navigate this critical period without falling back into victimhood. Before we continue, I ask you to perform a simple but potent act of reclamation. In the comments below, type the words, "I am the only operant power." This is not a phrase, it is a decree. It is Neville's own language, and it means that you are the sole causative force in your reality. No person, no circumstance, no external condition has power over you unless you grant it that power through your assumptions. By typing these words, you are consciously choosing to stop giving your authority away to the reflections in the mirror. You are claiming dominion over your inner kingdom, and therefore over the outer world that must obey it. Type it now. Speak it into existence. Let it be the first line of your new script. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, do so now, for we are building a library of sacred logic, a repository of the hidden mechanics that govern reality itself. This is not entertainment, this is initiation. We must now lay the foundation, the unshakable principle upon which all of this rests. Neville Goddard taught a concept he called mental transmission, though it is known by many names across different traditions: the law of assumption, the law of projection, the principle of correspondence. At its core, it is this: you are always broadcasting a signal. Every moment of your existence, whether you are aware of it or not, your consciousness is transmitting a specific frequency into the invisible field that surrounds you. This signal is not composed of words or thoughts in the conventional sense. It is composed of your deepest assumptions about yourself, your silent beliefs about who you are, what you deserve, and how the world sees you. These assumptions operate below the level of conscious awareness. They are the background hum of your psyche, the unquestioned premises upon which your entire perception of reality is built. Every person you encounter is an antenna. They are not independent beings making free choices about how to treat you. They are receivers picking up the signal you are broadcasting and responding to it automatically. If your signal says, "I am unlovable," specific people will materialize in your life to prove that assumption correct. They will ignore your messages, withhold affection, criticize you, or abandon you, not because they have consciously decided to hurt you, but because they are tuned to the frequency you are emitting. They are not the enemy. They are witnesses bearing testimony that you yourself have authored. You are the king in this kingdom, and they are the servants obeying your silent decree. The decree is not issued with your mouth, it is issued with your state of being. This is why you cannot change another person by appealing to their reason, their compassion, or their sense of fairness. Those qualities exist in them, certainly, but they are not accessible to you when you are broadcasting a signal that contradicts the outcome you desire. If you believe you are not worthy of respect, and you approach someone begging for respect, you are sending two conflicting signals simultaneously. The louder signal, the subconscious one, will always win. The person will feel your unworthiness more strongly than they hear your words, and they will respond accordingly. They will deny you, dismiss you, or demean you, and you will interpret this as evidence of their cruelty or your inadequacy, when in fact it is simply the law operating with mathematical precision. Neville understood that most people live their entire lives in a state of reversed causation. They believe that external conditions cause their internal states. I will feel loved when someone loves me. I will feel successful when I achieve success. I will feel respected when people respect me. This is the logic of the slave, not the king. The truth, the operational truth that Neville demonstrated again and again in his own life and in the lives of his students, is that causation flows in the opposite direction. Your internal state, your self-concept, your assumption about who you are, causes the external conditions. You must feel loved first, from within, independent of any external validation, and then the external world will produce people and circumstances that reflect that love back to you. You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled before the wish is fulfilled in fact, and the world will rearrange itself to match your assumption. This is not a technique you apply occasionally when you want something. This is the constant, unbroken operation of your consciousness. Every single moment you are assuming something about yourself, and every single moment the world is mirroring that assumption back to you. If you walk into a room assuming you are invisible, people will not see you. If you walk into the same room assuming you are magnetic and important, people will turn their heads. The room did not change. The people did not change. The signal changed, and therefore the reflection changed. The mechanism is always active. The only question is whether you are operating it consciously or unconsciously. Consider the man who complains that he is surrounded by dishonest people. Everywhere he goes, he is lied to, cheated, betrayed. He attributes this to bad luck, to living in a corrupt world, to the moral decay of modern society. But Neville would ask him, what assumption are you holding that produces this pattern? Upon examination, he would discover that he does not trust himself. He constantly doubts his own judgment, second-guesses his decisions, and lives in fear of being deceived. That internal state of distrust and suspicion is the signal he broadcasts, and the world, being a perfect mirror, sends him dishonest people to validate his assumption. The people are not inherently dishonest. They are playing the role his consciousness has assigned to them. If he were to change his assumption, if he were to cultivate deep self-trust and begin to assume that he lives in a world of integrity, the dishonest people would either leave his reality or transform their behavior in his presence. This principle applies to every relationship in your life: romantic partners, family members, employers, friends, even strangers on the street. No one is treating you randomly. No one is behaving independently of your signal. They are all dancers responding to the music you are playing, even though you cannot hear the music because it is playing in the subconscious realm. The melody is your self-concept, and the dancers must move to that melody. If you do not like the dance, you must change the music. There is no other way. You cannot force the dancers to move differently while the same song plays. They are compelled by the rhythm of your assumptions. Neville described this mechanism as the law of identical harvest. You reap what you sow, but the seeds are not your actions. The seeds are your assumptions. If you plant the seed of, "I am worthy of love and respect," you will harvest relationships in which you are loved and respected. If you plant the seed of, "I am not enough," you will harvest relationships in which you are criticized, abandoned, or mistreated. The soil is the subconscious mind. The seed is the assumption. The harvest is the external world. The law does not judge the quality of the seed, it simply grows whatever you plant. It is neutral, impersonal, and absolutely reliable. This is why Neville insisted that all prayer must be directed inward, not outward. You do not pray to God to change another person. You do not ask the universe to make your boss kinder or your spouse more loving. Such prayers are based on the false belief that the other person is the cause and you are the effect. The true prayer is the revision of your own consciousness. You go within, you change your assumption about yourself, you feel the new state as though it is already true, and then you release it into the subconscious field, trusting that the law will produce the corresponding external change. The external change is automatic. It is not optional. It is the law. Some will resist this teaching because it seems to absolve others of responsibility for their actions. If everyone is simply reflecting my state back to me, does that mean no one is accountable for their cruelty? But this is a misunderstanding of the principle. Accountability exists on the level of individual consciousness. Each person is responsible for their own assumptions and the realities they create. But in your reality, within your subjective universe, the people are reflecting you. You are not responsible for their souls or their karma, but you are entirely responsible for the version of them that appears in your world. You can meet a person who is cruel to everyone else, but kind to you, because in your reality, your assumption shapes their behavior toward you. Another person holding a different assumption will meet the same individual and experience cruelty, because that is what their assumption produces. This is the meaning of everyone is you pushed out. It doesn't mean that people are literal extensions of your body or that they have no existence outside of your perception. It means that the version of them you experience, the behavior they exhibit toward you, the role they play in your story, is entirely determined by your state of consciousness. They are actors and you are the director. You wrote their lines, you assigned their roles, and you control the script. If you do not like the performance, you do not fire the actor. You rewrite the script. The actor must then perform the new lines because the actor has no lines except the ones you provide. Therefore, when you feel hurt by another person, when you feel victimized or betrayed, the correct response is not to confront them, not to defend yourself, not to seek revenge or justice. The correct response is to go within and ask, what assumption am I holding that produced this experience? What do I believe about myself that made this person necessary in my reality? The answer to that question is the seed you planted. Once you identify it, you can plant a new seed, and the harvest must change. This is not theory. This is the operational law of consciousness, and Neville spent his entire life demonstrating its reliability. The signal you broadcast is not just about specific beliefs. It is about your entire self-concept, the sum total of everything you assume to be true about yourself. If you assume you are powerful, intelligent, deserving, and beloved, the world will reflect those qualities back to you in the form of opportunities, relationships, and circumstances that validate your assumption. If you assume you are weak, foolish, undeserving, and rejected, the world will deliver that reality with equal precision. The mechanism is impersonal. It does not care about your preferences. It cares only about your assumptions, and it mirrors them back to you with perfect fidelity. This is the foundation. This is the unshakable premise upon which all transformation rests. You are not a passive observer in a random universe. You are the operant power, the causative agent, the broadcaster of the signal that determines every response you receive. The people in your life are not obstacles to overcome or enemies to defeat. They are mirrors, reflecting your inner world back to you with such precision that if you dare to look closely, you will see your own face in every interaction. And when you finally accept this, when you stop fighting the mirror and start adjusting the image, you will discover a power so vast, so absolute, that you will wonder how you ever believed yourself to be a victim of anything or anyone. The unshakable logic of this law can be understood through a simple analogy: the Echo Canyon. Imagine you are standing in a vast canyon surrounded by towering cliffs. You open your mouth and shout into the canyon, "I hate you." The sound waves travel outward, bounce off the rock faces, and return to your ears as a perfect echo. "I hate you." Now, what would you think of a person who, upon hearing this echo, became furious at the canyon? What would you think of someone who screamed at the cliffs, demanding that they stop saying such hurtful things? You would recognize immediately that such a person has mistaken the effect for the cause. The canyon is not attacking them. The canyon is simply a mechanical system reflecting sound waves according to the laws of physics. If they want a different echo, they must change the voice. People are the canyon. They are not initiating their behavior toward you from some independent wellspring of free will and personal choice. They are echoing your deepest beliefs about yourself back to you. If you shout, "I am worthless," into the canyon of your relationships, not with your words, but with your silent assumptions, with the way you carry yourself, with the energy you emit when no one is watching, the canyon will shout, "You are worthless," back to you in the form of people who ignore you, disrespect you, undervalue you, and abandon you. And if you react to that echo with anger, hurt, or desperation, you are shouting even louder into the canyon, "I am worthless." The echo intensifies. The pattern deepens. The prison tightens. It is insanity to get angry at the canyon, yet this is what the vast majority of humanity does every single day. They rage at the reflections, they plead with the mirrors, they try to negotiate with the echoes, never realizing that the source of their suffering is not outside them, but within them. The outer world is not the problem. The outer world is simply the echo. It is simply the mechanical return of the sound waves you have been broadcasting, often for years or decades, without conscious awareness. If you want a different echo, if you want people to love you, respect you, value you, and support you, you must change the voice. You must change the signal. You must revise the assumption at the core of your being. This is why Neville insisted that circumstances do not matter. People protest, but this person really did betray me. This person really is cruel. This situation really is unfair. And all of that may be true on the surface level of appearances, but Neville is operating on a deeper level, the level of cause. He is saying that the betrayal, the cruelty, the unfairness, all of it is the echo. It is the return signal. It is the harvest of a seed you planted, perhaps unknowingly, in the subconscious soil. If you focus on the echo, if you argue with the reflection, if you try to fix the outer situation without changing the inner assumption, you will fail. The echo will persist. The reflection will not budge. You will exhaust yourself in a futile battle with effects, while the cause remains untouched. The law of projection operates with the same impersonal precision as the law of gravity. If you drop a stone, it falls. The stone does not fall because gravity is angry at you, or because you deserve to have stones fall on you. It falls because that is the nature of the law. Similarly, if you hold the assumption, "I am unlovable," people will treat you as unlovable. They are not doing this because they are bad people, or because you are inherently unlovable. They are doing this because the law of projection must reflect your assumption back to you. It has no choice. It is a law, not a suggestion. Consider the man who walks through life assuming that people are always trying to take advantage of him. He is suspicious, guarded, defensive. He interprets every interaction through the lens of potential exploitation. What will he experience? He will be surrounded by people who try to take advantage of him. Not because the world is full of predators, but because his assumption acts as a filter, attracting those who match his expectation and causing neutral interactions to be interpreted as threats. More than that, his assumption actually alters the behavior of the people around him. When he approaches someone with suspicion and defensiveness, he triggers defensiveness and hostility in return. His assumption becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and he gathers evidence daily that people are always trying to take advantage of me, never realizing that he is the author of that evidence. Now imagine that same man decides to change his assumption. He begins to assume, despite all contrary evidence, that people are fundamentally good, that they wish him well, that he lives in a world of generosity and kindness. At first, this feels like a lie. His rational mind protests, "But I have proof, look at all the times I've been wronged." But he persists in the new assumption. He imagines interactions in which people are kind to him. He revises his memories, seeing past betrayals as misunderstandings rather than attacks. He practices feeling safe and valued in the world. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, his external experience begins to shift. The people who used to exploit him either leave his life or inexplicably change their behavior. New people enter his life who treat him with respect and generosity. The same world that once seemed hostile now seems friendly. Did the world change, or did his perception change? Both. The world, as he experiences it, is a function of his perception, and when the perception shifts, the experienced world must shift with it. This is the principle Neville called revision. You do not argue with the reflection. You do not try to convince the mirror that it is wrong. You simply change the image you are projecting, and the mirror must reflect the new image. If the reflection still shows the old image for a time, and it will because of the echo delay, you do not panic. You do not revert to the old assumption. You hold steady in the new assumption, knowing that the law is operating, knowing that the outer world is merely catching up to the inner shift. The delay is not evidence that the law has failed. It is evidence that the law is working. But physical reality requires time to reorganize itself. Neville often spoke of the subconscious mind as the womb in which all external reality is gestated. When you impress a new assumption upon the subconscious, you have planted a seed. The seed does not sprout instantly. There is a period of invisible growth, during which nothing appears to be happening. But if you dig up the seed to check on it, if you doubt its viability and revert to the old assumption, you kill the seed before it can sprout. You must trust the process. You must maintain the assumption despite the absence of immediate evidence. This is the test, this is the refinement that separates those who master the law from those who abandon it prematurely. The canyon does not have a vendetta against you. The mirror is not conspiring to make you unhappy. The people in your life are not your enemies. They are simply reflecting the signal you are broadcasting, and they are doing so with perfect mechanical accuracy. If you are experiencing cruelty, indifference, or rejection, it is because somewhere in the depths of your consciousness, you are broadcasting a signal that says, "I deserve cruelty, indifference, or rejection." That signal may be hidden beneath layers of denial and compensation. You may consciously believe you deserve better, but the subconscious does not lie. It broadcasts your true assumptions, not your aspirational beliefs. Therefore, the only sane response to a negative reflection is gratitude. Gratitude, not because you enjoy suffering, but because the reflection has revealed to you the hidden assumption that is governing your reality. It has made visible what was invisible. It has given you the opportunity to identify the false seed and replace it with a true one. The cruel person is a teacher, showing you where you have been cruel to yourself. The rejecting person is a mirror, showing you where you have rejected yourself. Once you see this, once you truly understand it, you are free. You are no longer at the mercy of other people's behavior. You are no longer a victim of circumstances. You are the operant power, the causative force, the one who holds the script. The logic is unshakable. If you accept that your assumptions create your reality, and Neville provides overwhelming evidence for this claim, both through his own demonstrations and through the countless testimonies of his students, then you must accept that you are never a victim of another person. You are only ever a victim of your own unexamined assumptions, and since assumptions can be changed at will, you are never truly a victim at all. You are always, in every moment, one assumption away from total transformation. The canyon awaits your new voice. The mirror awaits your new image. The actors await their new script. Speak, and the echo must change. Assume, and the reflection must obey. We now enter the architecture, the precise engineering of transformation. But before you can execute the script rewrite protocol, you must achieve the required state of consciousness. I call this state cold responsibility. It is not an emotional state, it is a cognitive position, a stance from which all real power flows. Cold responsibility means that you must stop blaming. You must stop attributing your suffering to external causes. You must cease all mental activity that places the locus of power outside yourself, in the hands of other people, in the vagaries of circumstance, in the cruelty of fate. Blaming is not merely unproductive, it is the mechanism by which you surrender your dominion. When you blame another person for your pain, you are implicitly declaring that they have power over you, that your emotional state, your success, your happiness is in their hands rather than yours. This declaration, spoken silently in the depths of your mind, becomes an assumption, and that assumption is then projected outward and reflected back to you in the form of continued powerlessness. The person you blame will continue to hurt you, not because they are inherently cruel, but because your act of blaming them has reinforced the assumption that they control your reality. You have made them the operant power in your subjective universe, and the law, being neutral, will honor that designation. They will continue to play the role of the one who has power over you until you revoke that designation and reclaim it for yourself. Cold responsibility is the withdrawal of all external blame and the acceptance of total causation. It is the recognition that if someone is treating you poorly, you have authored that treatment through your assumptions. This does not mean you consciously wanted to be hurt. It does not mean you are morally culpable for their actions. It means that on the level of consciousness, On the level where reality is actually constructed, your assumption about yourself produced the experience. The person is an instrument of the law, delivering to you the exact reflection of your inner state. If you accept this, truly accept it, not as a pleasant philosophical idea, but as an operational fact, you will feel a strange sensation. At first, it will feel like pain, like the weight of the entire world crashing down on your shoulders. You will want to resist it. You will want to say, "But they really did wrong me. But I really am innocent. But this really isn't fair." And you are correct. On the level of conventional morality and social justice, you may indeed be innocent. But Neville is not operating on that level. He is operating on the level of metaphysical causation, where innocence and guilt are irrelevant categories. On this level, there is only cause and effect, assumption and reflection, seed and harvest. If you cling to your innocence, if you insist on the external cause of your suffering, you trap yourself in victimhood. You may be morally right, but you will remain experientially powerless. Cold responsibility is the willingness to trade moral righteousness for metaphysical power. When you admit, "I caused this," a shift occurs. The pain of admission, sharp though it may be, is the pain of birth. It is the pain of power returning to its rightful home. Because if you caused the problem, then you can uncause it. If your assumption produced the cruelty, then a new assumption can produce kindness. The moment you stop blaming the reflection and start adjusting the projector, you have stepped into the place where all change originates. This is the only place where power exists. Power does not exist in the external world. The external world is the world of effects, and effects cannot cause other effects. Power exists only in consciousness, in the realm of assumptions, in the inner kingdom where you are the sovereign. Cold responsibility is cold because it is not sentimental. It does not require you to feel guilty or to punish yourself for past assumptions. Guilt is just another form of blaming, directed inward instead of outward. Both external blame and self-blame are traps that keep you focused on the past and on the level of effects. Cold responsibility simply observes, "This is the assumption I have been holding. This is the reflection it produced. I now choose a different assumption. I will therefore produce a different reflection." It is mechanical. It is strategic. It is the mindset of an engineer, not a victim. Consider the woman who has been in a series of relationships in which she was betrayed. She has every right to be angry at the men who betrayed her. She has every right to seek justice, to warn others, to feel wounded. But if she stops there, if she remains in the stance of blame, she will attract another betrayer. The pattern will repeat. Why? Because her assumption, hidden beneath her anger and her righteous indignation, is, "I am the kind of woman who gets betrayed." That assumption is the seed. The betrayal is the harvest. The men are the instruments of the harvest, but they are not the cause. The cause is the seed. If she enters cold responsibility, she will ask a different question. Not, "Why do men keep betraying me?" but, "What assumption am I holding that produces betrayal?" Upon honest examination, she may discover that she does not trust herself. She constantly second-guesses her intuition, ignores red flags, and chooses partners who are emotionally unavailable because some part of her believes she does not deserve devotion. That belief, "I do not deserve devotion," is the hidden script. The men in her life are simply actors reading from that script. They are not villains. They are witnesses to her own self-concept. Once she sees this, once she accepts that she has been the author of her own suffering, she is free. Not free in the sense that the past pain disappears, but free in the sense that she now knows how to prevent future pain. She does not need to fix the men. She does not need to become more careful or more guarded. She needs to change the script. She needs to assume from this moment forward that she is the kind of woman who is cherished, honored, and adored. She needs to feel that truth in her body, to see it in her imagination, to wear it like a cloak, even when external evidence suggests otherwise. And when she does, the law must respond. The next man who enters her life will reflect the new assumption. Or, more astonishingly, the current man in her life may inexplicably transform, as though he has become a different person, because in her subjective reality, he has. He is reading from a new script. Cold responsibility is not blame turned inward. It is the cessation of all blame and the recognition of your role as the author of your reality. It is the most liberating and terrifying realization you will ever have. Liberating because it means you are never trapped. Terrifying because it means you can no longer hide behind excuses. You can no longer say, "If only they would change, then I could be happy." You must instead say, "I will change my assumption, and they must change in response." This is the burden and the blessing of being the operant power. Some will protest that this teaching makes them responsible for things they could not have known or controlled. How can I be responsible for my parents' abuse? I was a child. I had no power. But Neville is not speaking about moral responsibility for past events. He is speaking about operational responsibility for present experience. You did not choose your childhood circumstances, but you are now choosing, consciously or unconsciously, whether to continue living from the assumptions formed in that childhood. If you assume as an adult that you are still the powerless child, that you are still at the mercy of abusive authority, then the law will send you abusive authority figures to validate that assumption. The original abuse was not your fault, but the continuation of that pattern in your adult life is within your power to change, and the change begins not by finding better people, but by revising your self-concept. Cold responsibility is the threshold. You cannot proceed to the script rewrite protocol while still blaming others for your condition. The protocol requires that you accept fully and without reservation that you are the cause and the world is the effect. This does not mean you endorse past cruelty or pretend it didn't happen. It means you stop granting past cruelty the power to define your present reality. You revoke its authority. You reclaim the throne. You acknowledge that the people in your life are not independent agents making choices about you. They are mirrors reflecting you. And mirrors do not choose what they reflect. They simply reflect what is placed before them. The state of cold responsibility is not a feeling you wait to arrive. It is a decision you make. You decide right now to stop all mental activity that blames others. You catch yourself in the act of attributing power to external circumstances, and you correct it. "He made me feel this way" becomes "I felt this way, and he was the instrument through which my assumption manifested." "She treated me poorly because she's a bad person" becomes "She treated me according to the script I gave her. I now give her a new script." Every thought that externalizes power must be intercepted and revised. This is the discipline. This is the gatekeeping function that ensures you remain in the seat of power. When you have achieved cold responsibility, you will feel it as a kind of stillness. The frantic energy of victimhood, the constant need to defend yourself or change others, will drain away. You will look at difficult people not with anger, but with detached curiosity as a scientist looks at data. You will think, "Interesting, this person is reflecting my assumption of inadequacy. Now I will change the assumption and observe the change in the reflection." There is no heat in this, no emotional investment in their behavior. You are focused solely on the cause which is within you, and you trust that when the cause changes, the effect must follow. This is the required state. This is the mental preparation. You must achieve cold responsibility before you can execute the script rewrite protocol, because the protocol is an act of conscious creation, and creation requires that you be seated in the position of creator. If you attempt the protocol while still believing that others have power over you, the protocol will fail, not because the technique is flawed, but because your assumption of powerlessness will override the new script you are trying to write. You cannot impress a new assumption on the subconscious while simultaneously holding the assumption that you are not the operant power. The two assumptions are incompatible. One must be released before the other can take root. Therefore, before you proceed, ask yourself, am I still blaming anyone for my condition? Am I still waiting for someone to change so that I can be happy? Am I still secretly believing that my suffering is their fault? If the answer is yes, return to the work of cold responsibility. Return to the recognition that the reflection is not the cause. Return to the understanding that you are the broadcaster and they are the antenna. When you can look at the most difficult person in your life and think, without any trace of blame. You are simply showing me what I have been assuming about myself. You are ready. You have crossed the threshold. You are standing in the place of power. And from that place, all transformation is possible. Now we execute the script rewrite protocol. This is the practical application of the law, the step-by-step method by which you alter the signal and thereby alter the reflection. The protocol consists of 3 distinct steps, and each must be performed with precision. You are not merely visualizing or wishing, you are impressing a new assumption upon the subconscious mind, and that impression, once accepted, must externalize as changed behavior in the people around you. The law does not fail. If the technique appears to fail, it is because the assumption was not truly impressed, or because the old assumption was reactivated during the echo delay. Follow the protocol exactly as prescribed, and the result is guaranteed. Step 1. The diagnosis. Before you can rewrite the script, you must identify what the current script is. Look at the villain in your life, the person who is causing you the most pain or frustration. What are they doing? Are they ignoring you, disrespecting you, refusing to commit, criticizing you, withholding love or resources? Describe their behavior with precision. Now, trace it back. This person is a mirror. They are reflecting an assumption you hold about yourself. If they are ignoring you, where in your life do you ignore yourself? Where do you dismiss your own needs, silence your own voice, or fail to honor your own desires? If they are disrespecting you, where do you disrespect yourself? Where do you tolerate poor treatment, fail to set boundaries, or speak to yourself with cruelty? The behavior of the other person is never random. It is always a precise reflection of some aspect of your self-concept. The difficulty is that the reflection is often inverted or symbolic. You may not see the connection immediately, but if you sit with the question, if you honestly examine your internal dialogue and your habitual patterns of self-treatment, the root belief will reveal itself. You may discover that you have been operating from the assumption, I am not important enough to be prioritized, or I do not deserve to be treated with kindness, or I am too much of a burden. These assumptions are rarely conscious. They are buried in the subconscious, humming in the background, broadcasting their signal without your knowledge. But their effects are undeniable. The people in your life are simply making those hidden assumptions visible. Write down the assumption you have identified. Make it explicit. Do not soften it or rationalize it. If the assumption is, I am unworthy of love, write that down. If it is, people always abandon me, write that down. This is the current script. This is the signal you have been broadcasting. This is the seed you planted. It is painful to see it written out, to acknowledge that you have been the author of your own suffering. But this pain is the necessary precursor to power. You cannot change what you will not acknowledge. Step 2. The revision. Now you will write the new script. Close your eyes. Bring the difficult person before you in your imagination. See them clearly, hear their voice, feel their presence. But now, instead of seeing them as they have been, you will see them as you wish them to be. You will hear them say exactly what you want to hear. If they have been ignoring you, hear them say, I value you. I prioritize you. You are important to me. If they have been disrespecting you, hear them say, I respect you, I honor you, I see your worth. If they have been withholding love, hear them say, I love you, I cherish you, you are precious to me. Do not make this a long or complicated scene. Do not worry about how such a change could occur. Do not try to script the intermediate steps or the reasons for their transformation. Simply construct a short, vivid scene that implies the wish fulfilled. Neville called this the end scene, the scene that would naturally occur if your desire were already a fact. If the person already respected you, what would they say? What would they do? Construct that scene and replay it in your imagination with as much sensory detail as possible. Hear the tone of their voice, see the expression on their face, feel the relief, the joy, the satisfaction of the restored relationship. The scene should last no more than a few seconds, but it must be repeated. This is not a one-time visualization. This is the impressing of a new assumption upon the subconscious, and the subconscious requires repetition. Replay the scene in a loop. Hear the words again and again. Feel the feeling of the wish fulfilled again and again. Do this every night before sleep, because the moments before sleep are when the subconscious is most receptive. You are dropping the seed into the subconscious soil, and you are watering it with repetition and feeling. Step 3. The inner conversation. Beyond the formal imaginal act, you must change your habitual mental conversation about this person. Throughout your day, when you think of them, you must think from the new assumption, not the old one. This is where most people fail. They perform the imaginal act at night, but during the day they continue to rehash past grievances, to complain about the person to others, to mentally argue with them or criticize them. All of this is negative prayer. It is the reactivation of the old assumption, and it cancels out the new one. Neville taught that your inner speech, the constant stream of internal dialogue that runs through your mind, is the primary mechanism by which assumptions are maintained or changed. If you want the person to respect you, you must stop speaking to them disrespectfully in your mind. If you want them to love you, you must stop mentally accusing them of being cold or cruel. This does not mean you pretend the past didn't happen. It means you refuse to rehearse it. You refuse to give it any more energy. Instead, you carry on mental conversations with them from the premise that the problem is solved. Imagine congratulating them on their changed behavior. Imagine thanking them for how kind they've been lately. Imagine other people commenting on how much they've improved. These are not lies, they are prophetic statements. You are speaking from the end, as though the desired state is already true, and by doing so, you are impressing that state upon the subconscious. The subconscious does not distinguish between what is imagined and what is real. If you consistently imagine and affirm the new reality, the subconscious accepts it as fact and begins to externalize it. Do not argue with the person mentally. Do not rehash the hurt. Do not plan what you will say to them when you confront them. All of that is the perpetuation of the old script. The new script is one of harmony, respect, and love, and you must live in that script mentally, even while the external world still reflects the old one. This is the test of faith, the trial by fire. Can you maintain the new assumption in the face of contradictory evidence? Can you continue to think of them as loving and respectful, even when they are still behaving in the old pattern? If you can, you will succeed. If you cannot, you will remain trapped in the old reality. After you have performed the imaginal act and revised your inner conversations, you must adopt what I call the post-technique stance. When you encounter this person in physical reality, you must ignore the current behavior. This is the most difficult part of the protocol, and it is the part where most people break. They do the work internally, but when they see the person and the person is still cold or rude, they react. They get angry, hurt, or discouraged. They think this isn't working, but what they fail to understand is that the physical reality is the old echo. It is the lagging reflection of the previous assumption. The person is still behaving according to the old script, because physical reality requires time to catch up to the inner shift. You must treat the current behavior as irrelevant. You must look past it, through it, as though it is not even there. This does not mean you tolerate abuse or allow yourself to be mistreated. It means you do not give the old behavior any emotional significance. You do not react to it as though it is evidence that the law has failed. You see it for what it is, the final death throes of the old assumption, the lingering shadow that will dissolve as soon as the new assumption fully takes root in the subconscious. Hold steady, maintain your inner script, continue your imaginal acts. Continue your revised inner conversations. Do not waver. Do not revert to the old assumption, no matter how compelling the external evidence may be. The external evidence is always a lie in the process of transformation. It is showing you the past, not the future. Your job is to remain loyal to the future you have imagined, to the new script you have written, to the new assumption you have impressed. And if you do this, if you persist despite appearances, the law must deliver. The person must change. They have no choice. They are your reflection, and the reflection must match the image. This is the script rewrite protocol. It is simple, but it is not easy. It requires discipline, faith, and an unwavering commitment to the new assumption. But it works. It works because it is based on the law, and the law is as reliable as mathematics. If you change the input, The output must change. If you change the seed, the harvest must change. If you change the signal, the reflection must change. There are no exceptions. There is only the question of whether you will maintain the new assumption long enough for it to externalize, or whether you will abandon it prematurely and return to the old pattern of victimhood and blame. We now address the refinement, the critical details that determine success or failure. The script rewrite protocol is powerful, but it is also fragile in its early stages. The new assumption is like a seedling, full of potential, but vulnerable to damage. The most common cause of failure is not the technique itself, but the mistakes people make during the period I call the echo delay. Understanding this delay and knowing how to navigate it is the difference between those who master the law and those who abandon it in frustration. The echo delay is the time lag between the moment you impress a new assumption on the subconscious and the moment that assumption externalizes as changed behavior in the people around you. This delay is not optional. It is a feature of physical reality, not a flaw in the law. When you change your assumption, you have altered the signal you are broadcasting. But the people in your life are still responding to the old signal because that is the signal they have been receiving for days, weeks, months, or years. They are like trains on a track. They have momentum, and momentum takes time to reverse. Mistake number 1, reacting to the shadow. You perform the imaginal act. You revise your inner conversations. You feel powerful and certain that the change is coming. And then the very next day you see the person, and they are still rude. They still ignore you. They still behave exactly as they did before. Your heart sinks. You think, it didn't work. And in that moment of disappointment, you reactivate the old assumption. You feel the old feelings of hurt and rejection. You mentally return to the position of victimhood, and by doing so, you have just reset the entire process. The new seed has been uprooted before it could sprout. This is the trap. The external world during the echo delay is showing you the past, not the present. It is showing you the reflection of the old assumption, which is still hanging in the air like smoke after a fire has been extinguished. The fire is out. You have changed the assumption, but the smoke lingers. If you react to the smoke as though it is evidence that the fire is still burning, you will relight the fire. You will reassume the old position, and the law, ever obedient, will produce more of the same. Neville compared this to the stars. When a star burns out in distant space, we continue to see its light for years because the light has already been traveling toward us. The star is dead, but the light has not yet reached us. Similarly, when you change your assumption, the old reflection continues to manifest for a time because it is the light of the previous assumption still traveling toward you, but the source has changed, the star has burned out. If you hold steady, the old light will fade, and the new light, the reflection of the new assumption, will arrive. Therefore, when you see the old behavior during the echo delay, you must treat it as irrelevant. You must not give it meaning. You must not interpret it as evidence. You must see it as the shadow of what was, not the reality of what is. This requires immense discipline. Your rational mind will scream at you, "Look, nothing has changed, you're wasting your time." But your rational mind is observing effects, and effects are always lagging indicators. The cause, your assumption, has already changed. The effect is merely catching up. How long does the echo delay last? There is no fixed duration. It depends on the depth of the old assumption, the strength of the new assumption, and your ability to remain faithful during the delay. For some, the shift occurs within hours. For others, it may take days or weeks, but the delay is always temporary. The law is not slow. The law is instantaneous on the level of cause. The delay exists only on the level of physical manifestation, which must reorganize itself according to the new cause. Mistake number 2, trying to change them. During the echo delay, the temptation will arise to help the process along. You will want to talk to the person, to explain how you've changed, to give them books or advice, to convince them to treat you better. This is meddling with the mirror. It is an act of doubt disguised as action. If you truly believed that the law was working, you would not need to intervene. You would trust that the person is already receiving the new signal on a subconscious level and that their behavior will shift without any conscious effort on your part. When you try to change the person directly, when you plead, argue, educate, or manipulate, you are broadcasting a very clear signal. I do not believe the law is sufficient. I do not believe my assumption alone can produce the change. I must force it to happen through external means. That signal of doubt and lack becomes the new assumption, and the law responds to it. The person will resist your efforts. They will become defensive or dismissive. They will dig in their heels and behave even more egregiously, because you have just assumed that they are resistant and difficult, and they are mirroring that assumption back to you. Leave them alone. Do not attempt to manage the external. Your only job is to manage the internal. Change yourself and they will change automatically. Neville stated this with absolute clarity. There is no one to change but self. Not, there is no one to change but self, and also maybe you should have a conversation with them just to be safe. No, you change yourself, period. You change your assumption, you hold that assumption steadily, and you trust the law to do the rest. The law does not need your help. It does not need your interference. It simply needs your faith. As you rise in consciousness, as you assume the state of being loved, respected, and valued, one of two things will happen. Either the person in your life will shift their behavior to match your new assumption, or they will exit your reality. Both outcomes are evidence that the law is working. If the person leaves, it is not because the technique failed. It is because that specific person was only able to exist in your reality when you were holding the old assumption. When you change the assumption, their role in your story ended. Someone new will enter, who is capable of playing the role of the respectful, loving person you now assume yourself to be surrounded by. Do not mourn such departures. They are evidence of your transformation. The old cast of characters cannot perform in the new play. You have rewritten the script, and some actors are not suited to the new roles. Let them go with gratitude for the lessons they taught you about your own consciousness, and make room for the new cast that matches your new self-concept. Now I will share with you the master's tips, the refinements that Neville himself emphasized repeatedly throughout his teachings. These are not optional enhancements, they are essential components of the practice. The first and most important of these is contained in Neville's most famous declaration: "You have no one to change but yourself." This statement is not a suggestion. It is a command. It is the key that unlocks the entire mechanism. Every time you find yourself focused on changing another person, on wishing they were different, on imagining what you will do when they finally change, you have abandoned the law and returned to the world of effects. The temptation to focus on the other person is overwhelming. They are, after all, the source of your pain in your current experience. It seems logical to address the problem at its source, but this is the great illusion. They are not the source. They are the effect. You are the source. Your assumption about yourself is the cause, and their behavior is the effect. Trying to change the effect without changing the cause is like trying to change your reflection by reaching into the mirror. It cannot be done. The mirror has no substance of its own. It can only reflect what is placed before it. Therefore, every moment you spend thinking about them, analyzing them, trying to understand their psychology or motivations, is wasted energy. Their psychology is irrelevant. Their motivations are irrelevant. They are not operating from independent free will when they interact with you. They are operating as instruments of the law, delivering to you the exact reflection of your assumption. If you want them to behave differently, you must assume differently about yourself. The change in them is automatic. It is not something you create directly. It is something that occurs as a natural consequence of your changed assumption. Neville often said, "Do not go to the outside to change the inside. Go to the inside to change the outside." This is the reversal of the way most people approach life. Most people see something they don't like in the external world, and they attempt to fix it externally. They take action, they manipulate, they strategize, they force. And sometimes, temporarily, they achieve a change. But the change does not last, because the internal assumption that created the problem in the first place has not been addressed. The problem will reassert itself, often in a different form, because the seed is still in the ground. The true master does not go to the outside at all. The true master goes within. identifies the assumption that produced the unwanted condition, replaces that assumption with a new one, and then rests in the certainty that the external world must conform. This is not passivity. It is the highest form of action. It is action on the level of cause, which is infinitely more powerful than action on the level of effect. Another critical insight from Neville is the concept of the wish fulfilled. You do not imagine the process by which the change will occur. You do not imagine the person going to therapy, having an epiphany, reading a self-help book, and gradually becoming kinder. You do not concern yourself with the how. You concern yourself only with the what. You imagine the end result, the state that would exist if your desire were already a fact. If the person already respected you, what would that look like? What would they say? How would they act? Imagine that, and only that. The reason for this is that the subconscious mind is the creative medium. It is infinitely intelligent. It knows every possible path from the current state to the desired state, but it can only operate when you give it a clear end point. If you try to dictate the path, you limit the subconscious to the narrow range of possibilities that your conscious mind can conceive. But if you simply define the end and leave the means to the subconscious, you allow it to orchestrate the change through pathways you could never have imagined. The person may change suddenly, inexplicably, for reasons that make no logical sense. That is the subconscious at work. Neville also emphasized the importance of naturalness. The imaginal act should feel natural, effortless, real. If it feels forced or artificial, you are not truly impressing the subconscious. You are merely going through the motions. The subconscious responds to feeling, not to effort. You must relax into the scene. You must let it play out in your imagination as though you are remembering something that has already happened, not forcing something to happen. This is why Neville recommended performing the imaginal act in the drowsy state before sleep, because in that state, the critical faculties are relaxed and the subconscious is most receptive. Do not make the imaginal act a chore. Do not approach it with grim determination or desperate effort. Approach it with joy, with the lightness of someone who is simply reminding themselves of a pleasant truth. Oh yes, she respects me now. How wonderful that is. Feel the pleasure of it. Feel the relief. Feel the satisfaction. The feeling is the secret. The feeling is what impresses the subconscious, not the vividness of the imagery or the length of the session. A brief scene, felt deeply, is far more effective than a long, elaborate visualization performed mechanically. Finally, Neville taught that you must persist. Persistence does not mean endless repetition of the imaginal act for months on end. It means that you hold the assumption steadily until it externalizes, regardless of how long that takes. You do not give up after a week because you have not yet seen results. You do not revert to the old assumption when the echo delay tests your faith. You persist in the new assumption as though it is already a fact, and you treat all contrary evidence as the temporary shadow of the old assumption dying away. Persistence is not stubbornness. Persistence is certainty. It is the quiet confidence that the law is working, that the seed has been planted, that the harvest is inevitable. You do not persist because you are desperate or doubtful. You persist because you know, and that knowing, that unshakable inner certainty, is the final ingredient that ensures success. When you know, not hope, not believe, but know that the change is already accomplished on the inner plane and must therefore externalize on the outer plane, you have become the operant power. You have mastered the law. And from that point forward, no person, no circumstance, no external condition can ever have power over you again, because you understand that you are the cause and they are the effect. We now arrive at the validation, the point at which the mystical and the scientific converge. Neville Goddard's teaching is not mere philosophy or wishful thinking. It is a description of the actual mechanics of reality, and those mechanics are now being confirmed by the most rigorous discipline known to humanity, quantum physics. The connection between Neville's law of assumption and the findings of quantum mechanics is not metaphorical, it is direct. What Neville taught through spiritual revelation, quantum physicists are now discovering through mathematical proof and experimental observation. The phenomenon most relevant to our discussion is quantum entanglement. In 1935, Einstein, Podolsky, and Rosen published a paper describing what Einstein mockingly called spooky action at a distance. They had discovered through theoretical analysis that two particles that have interacted with each other remain connected in a strange way. If you measure the state of one particle, the other particle instantaneously adjusts its state to maintain a specific mathematical relationship, regardless of the distance separating them. They could be on opposite sides of the universe, and the connection would still hold. Einstein believed this proved that quantum mechanics was incomplete, that there must be some hidden variable explaining the connection. But decades of subsequent experiments have confirmed that quantum entanglement is real, that there is no hidden variable, and that the connection between entangled particles operates faster than the speed of light, which is to say, instantaneously. When one particle decides to spin up, the other knows immediately and spins down, even if they are separated by billions of miles. The information does not travel through space. It simply updates simultaneously in both locations. Now apply this to human relationships. You are not a separate, isolated entity floating through an indifferent universe. You are entangled with every person you have ever interacted with. On the quantum level, you and they form a unified system. Your consciousness is not trapped inside your skull. It extends outward, forming invisible connections with the consciousness of others. When you shift your state, when you change your assumption about yourself, the people who are entangled with you must adjust their state to maintain the equation. This is not magic, this is physics. Neville taught that everyone is you pushed out, and quantum mechanics explains the mechanism. You are not pushing them out in the sense of controlling their thoughts or forcing them to obey you. You are pushing them out in the sense that your state of consciousness determines the state of the entire system of which you are a part. When you change your spin, when you move from the state of unlovable to the state of beloved, every person entangled with you must adjust their spin accordingly. Some will move closer, becoming more loving and attentive. Others will move away, exiting your reality because they cannot maintain the connection in the new configuration. But none of them have a choice. The entanglement is not optional. It is a feature of the quantum field. This explains why the change in other people's behavior toward you occurs without any direct communication. You do not need to tell them that you have changed your assumption. You do not need to explain the law to them or convince them to treat you differently. The information transfer happens below the level of conscious awareness, through the quantum field that connects all consciousness. When you change your inner state, you send a signal through the field, and everyone who is tuned to your frequency receives that signal and responds to it automatically. Some will object, but people have free will. How can they be compelled to change their behavior toward me? But this objection is based on a misunderstanding of free will. People do have free will in the absolute sense. They are free to choose their own assumptions, their own states of consciousness, their own realities. But within your subjective reality, within your personal universe, they do not have free will independent of your assumption. They are free in their own universe, but in yours, they are reflections of you. This is not a contradiction. It is the structure of a holographic, multi-perspectival reality in which every observer is the center of their own subjective universe. Think of it this way. In a video game, the non-player characters, NPCs, appear to have independent behavior. They walk around, say things, react to the player, but in reality, they are algorithms responding to the player's inputs. The player's choices determine the NPC's behavior. The NPCs do not have agency within the game world. They are part of the game's response to the player's state. Similarly, in your subjective reality, other people appear to have independent agency, but they are actually responding to your assumptions, your state, your signal. In their own subjective realities, they are the player, and you are the NPC. Both perspectives are true simultaneously. Quantum mechanics also reveals the principle of superposition. A particle exists in all possible states simultaneously until it is observed, at which point it collapses into a single, definite state. Applied to relationships, this means that every person in your life exists in a superposition of all possible versions of themselves. They are simultaneously kind and cruel, loving and indifferent, supportive, and hostile. Which version you experience depends on your active observation, which is to say, your assumption. When you assume they are loving, you collapse the superposition into the loving version. When you assume they are hostile, you collapse it into the hostile version. This is why two people can interact with the same individual and have completely different experiences. One person finds them kind and generous, another finds them cold and stingy. Both are correct. They are observing different versions of the person, versions that are determined by their own assumptions. The person is not objectively kind or objectively cold. They are a field of potential, and your consciousness determines which potential actualizes in your experience. Neville understood this intuitively. He taught that you do not experience the world as it is. You experience the world as you are. Your consciousness is the filter, the lens, the selective mechanism that determines which version of reality you perceive. And since you are entangled with everyone in your reality, your consciousness does not merely select which version you perceive, it actually participates in creating which version manifests. You are not a passive observer. You are an active co-creator, shaping the behavior of others through the assumptions you hold. The implications of this are staggering. It means that no relationship is fixed. No person is inherently any particular way toward you. They are always a field of potential, and you are always the one determining which potential actualizes. If someone has been cruel to you for years, it is not because they are a cruel person. It is because you have been holding the assumption that produces cruelty, and they have been reflecting that assumption back to you. Change the assumption, and they will reflect the new assumption. The version of them that is kind has always existed in the quantum field. You simply have not been observing it. This also explains the phenomenon Neville called revision. You can go back into the past in imagination and change your memory of an event. And when you do, the present consequences of that event will change. This sounds impossible, but quantum mechanics allows for it through the principle of retrocausality. The future can influence the past. Experiments have shown that the act of observation in the present can determine the state of a particle in the past. If you revise a memory, you are not changing an objective historical fact. You are changing your relationship to that event, which is to say, you are changing the version of that event that exists in your subjective reality. And since the present is always a consequence of the past as you remember it, changing the past as remembered changes the present as experienced. Neville taught his students to revise their days before sleep. If something unpleasant happened, they were to replay it in imagination with the outcome they desired, and to do this until the new version felt more real than the original. This practice is not self-deception, it is the deliberate use of retrocausality to alter the trajectory of one's reality. The past is not fixed. It is a field of possibilities, and your memory is the act of observation that collapses that field into a specific state. Change the observation, and you change the state. The connection between Neville's teachings and quantum mechanics is profound and undeniable. What mystics have known for millennia, science is now confirming. Consciousness is not a byproduct of matter. Consciousness is the fundamental reality, and matter is the byproduct. You are not in the universe. The universe is in you. You are not interacting with other people. You are interacting with aspects of your own consciousness projected outward. And when you change your consciousness, you change the projection. The screen must display the new image. The reflection must match the new face. The actors must recite the new lines. This is not belief, this is law, this is not hope, this is physics. Allow me now to provide an anecdote, a concrete example of the law in operation, so that you may see how this principle manifests in ordinary life. I will tell you the story of a woman, we will call her Sarah, who worked in a corporate office under a tyrannical boss. This man, whom we will call Mr. Grant, was known throughout the company for his cruelty. He berated his employees publicly, took credit for their work, and created an atmosphere of fear and resentment. Sarah had worked under him for 2 years, and every day was a psychological battle. She would come home exhausted, not from the work itself, but from the constant stress of navigating his volatile moods. Sarah had tried everything to improve the situation. She had attempted to please him by working harder, staying later, anticipating his needs. She had tried to reason with him during his calmer moments, explaining how his behavior affected the team. She had even gone to HR, filing a formal complaint, but nothing changed. Mr. Grant was untouchable. He delivered results, and the company valued results over employee well-being. Sarah felt trapped. She could not afford to quit without another job lined up, and the job market in her field was difficult. She was, by all external measures, a victim of circumstances beyond her control. Then Sarah encountered Neville Goddard's teachings. At first, she was skeptical. The idea that she was somehow responsible for her boss's behavior seemed absurd, even offensive. She was the one being abused. How could that possibly be her fault? But the more she read, the more she began to see the logic. She realized that she had been assuming for 2 years that she was powerless, that she was at the mercy of Mr. Grant's whims, that she was the kind of person who gets mistreated by authority figures. And when she looked back at her life, she saw that this was a pattern. Every boss she had ever had, every teacher, every authority figure, had treated her with some degree of dismissiveness or cruelty. The common factor was not them, it was her. Sarah decided to test the law. She made a decision. She would no longer try to change Mr. Grant externally. She would not complain about him, not to her co-workers, not to her friends, not even in her own mind. She would stop rehearsing his offenses. She would stop imagining future confrontations. Instead, she would change her assumption about herself. She began to affirm silently and repeatedly, "I am respected by authority. I am valued for my contributions. I am treated with kindness and consideration by those in power over me." Every night before sleep, she performed an imaginal act. She would close her eyes and see herself in Mr. Grant's office, but instead of the usual scene, him yelling, her shrinking, she imagined him praising her. She heard him say, "Sarah, I don't know what I would do without you. Your work is exceptional. I'm grateful to have you on my team." She replayed this scene night after night until it began to feel more real than the daily reality she was experiencing. During the day when she thought of Mr. Grant, she would catch herself before falling into the old pattern of dread and resentment. Instead, she would think, "He's having a good day today. He's been so much more pleasant lately." This was not true. He was still behaving exactly as he always had. But Sarah was practicing living from the end, assuming the change had already occurred, even though her senses told her otherwise. For the first 3 days, nothing changed. Mr. Grant was as difficult as ever. Sarah felt discouraged, but she remembered the concept of the echo delay. She reminded herself that she was seeing the reflection of the old assumption, and she refused to react to it. She continued her imaginal acts. She continued her revised inner speech. She persisted. On the 4th day, something strange happened. Mr. Grant walked past her desk and paused. He looked at the report she was working on and said, "This looks good, Sarah. Keep it up." It was a small comment, nothing extraordinary, but it was the first neutral or positive thing he had said to her in 2 years. Sarah felt a surge of hope, but she did not allow herself to react outwardly. She simply thanked him and continued her work, maintaining her internal assumption that this was the beginning of the new normal, not an anomaly. Over the next week, Mr. Grant's behavior toward her shifted dramatically. He stopped singling her out for criticism. He began to ask her opinion on projects. He smiled at her in meetings. By the end of the 2nd week, he called her into his office, a summons that would have filled her with dread in the past, and told her he was giving her a raise and promoting her to team lead. He said, and I quote Sarah's recollection, "I've been noticing your work ethic and your attitude. You're exactly the kind of person we need in a leadership position." Sarah was stunned. The man had not changed his personality. He was still difficult with other employees. But toward her, he had become a completely different person, and she knew with absolute certainty that the change had nothing to do with anything she had done externally. She had not worked harder. She had not changed her behavior in the office. The only thing that had changed was her assumption about herself and her internal conversations about him. This story is not unique. Neville's students reported thousands of such transformations. Hostile spouses became loving. Distant children became attentive. Cold employers became generous. And in every case, the external person had not undergone therapy, had not read a self-help book, had not consciously decided to change. They simply responded to the shift in the consciousness of the person who had been experiencing them as difficult. The person changed the assumption, and the reflection changed automatically. Sarah's story demonstrates the core principle. You are never a victim of another person's behavior. You are only ever a victim of your own assumption about what you deserve, what is possible, and who you are. The behavior of others is always, without exception, a mirror of your inner state. And when you change the inner state, the mirror must reflect the change. The delay may test your faith, but the law never fails. The reflection always, eventually matches the image. We arrive now at the transformation, the synthesis of all that has been revealed. You have journeyed through the portal, where you were shown that you have been arguing with puppets and fighting reflections. You passed through the foundation, where you learned that you are always broadcasting a signal and that people are merely antennas receiving that signal. You mastered the architecture, executing the script rewrite protocol with precision and navigating the treacherous echo delay. You received the validation, understanding that your power is not mystical belief but quantum reality. Now we must distill this knowledge into a single, unified principle that you can carry with you into every moment of your life. The synthesis is this: you are never a victim of people. You are only ever a victim of your own state. Every person who has ever hurt you, rejected you, dismissed you, or betrayed you was not acting from independent malice or indifference. They were responding automatically and inevitably to the assumption you held about yourself. They were instruments of the law, delivering to you the exact reflection of your inner conviction. And because they were instruments, not causes, changing them was never the solution. Changing yourself was always the only solution. This realization is both devastating and liberating. It is devastating because it strips away all the comforting narratives of victimhood. You can no longer blame your parents for your wounds, your partner for your loneliness, your boss for your stagnation, or society for your limitations. All of those external causes dissolve under the light of this truth. You are revealed as the author of your own experience, and that authorship extends backward through your entire life. Every painful moment, every rejection, every loss, you called it forth through your assumptions. This is a bitter medicine to swallow. But it is also liberating, because if you caused it, you can uncause it. If your assumptions created the problem, your assumptions can solve it. You are not trapped by external circumstances. You are not dependent on the goodwill of others. You are not waiting for permission, for luck, for the stars to align. You have within yourself at every moment the power to change your entire reality by changing your state of consciousness. This is the liberation Neville promised. Not freedom from the world, but freedom within the world, the recognition that you are the operant power and that no external condition has authority over you. Hear this message of empowerment, for it is the gospel Neville preached until his final breath. Stop fighting the mirror. You cannot win that fight. The mirror will always reflect what is placed before it, and no amount of arguing, pleading, or force will change that law. If you scream at the mirror, the reflection screams back. If you weep before the mirror, the reflection weeps back. The mirror is innocent. The mirror is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is showing you the truth of your own state. Smile at the mirror. Not because you are happy with what you currently see, but because you understand the mechanism. The reflection is not your enemy. The reflection is your teacher, your guide, your most faithful servant. It is showing you with perfect accuracy what you have been assuming. And now that you know this, now that you understand the game, you can play it consciously. You can forgive yourself for the bad script you wrote in the past. You were not to blame. You did not know the law. You were operating in ignorance, broadcasting signals unconsciously, and the world simply responded as it must. But now you know. Now you have been initiated into the sacred logic, the mathematics of manifestation, the physics of the psyche. You can write a new script. You can write a romance, a success story, a comedy, an epic of triumph and joy. The actors in your life are waiting for your lines, They have no lines of their own. They will say whatever you write for them. They will play whatever role you assign them. This is not manipulation. This is not control. This is simply the way reality operates. You are the center of your subjective universe, and everyone in it is reflecting you. So write a good script. Write a script in which you are loved, cherished, respected, celebrated. Write a script in which you are supported, uplifted, and adored. Do not be modest. Do not be realistic. Do not write a script that merely avoids pain. Write a script that overflows with pleasure, with connection, with the fulfillment of your deepest desires. The actors can perform any role. They are infinitely flexible. They are awaiting your direction. Give them lines that make you weep with joy. Give them scenes that fill you with gratitude. Give them a story worth living. And remember this, the transformation is not out there. It is not in the future, waiting for you to earn it or deserve it. The transformation is here now, in the moment you change your assumption. The moment you decide, truly decide with every fiber of your being, that you are worthy of love, respect, and abundance, the transformation is complete on the inner plane. The outer plane must then conform, but the conforming is mechanical, automatic, inevitable. Your work is not to make the outer plane change. Your work is to hold the inner conviction steady until the outer plane catches up. Do not let the old reflection discourage you. Do not let the echo delay make you doubt. The delay is proof that the law is working, not proof that it has failed. When you plant a seed, you do not dig it up every day to check if it is growing. You trust the process. You water it, you give it light, and you wait with certainty for the sprout to emerge. Treat your assumptions the same way. Plant the new seed, water it with repetition and feeling, and wait with calm assurance for the harvest. It will come. It must come. The law guarantees it. I leave you now with a challenge, a practical test of everything you have learned. I call it the Mental Hug Challenge, and it is designed to target the most difficult relationship in your life, the one that causes you the most pain and frustration. This is not a challenge for the faint of heart. It requires courage, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to the law. Here is the challenge. Identify the most difficult person in your life. This is the person you have been blaming for your unhappiness, the person you have been arguing with, mentally and perhaps physically, the person whose behavior you have been trying to change to no avail. It could be a partner, a parent, a sibling, a co-worker, a boss, a friend. Whoever it is, bring them to mind now. For the next 3 days, you will perform a specific imaginal act. Every night before sleep, you will close your eyes and imagine hugging this person. You will feel their arms around you. You will hear them whisper in your ear, "I love you, I'm sorry for how I've been, things are going to be different now." You will feel the warmth, the reconciliation, the relief of the restored relationship. You will do this every night for 3 consecutive nights, and during those 3 days you will not engage with this person physically unless absolutely necessary. You will not text them, call them, or initiate any interaction. You will let the imaginal act do the work. If you must interact with them during these 3 days, you will be polite and neutral, but you will not react to their behavior. If they are still difficult, you will see it as the old echo and give it no significance. You will maintain in your mind the assumption that the relationship has already been healed, that they are already transformed. You will carry on silent, friendly conversations with them throughout your day, congratulating them on their improved behavior, thanking them for their kindness. At the end of the 3 days, observe what has happened. Has their behavior shifted? Has an opportunity for reconciliation emerged? Have you received a call, a message, an apology? Or has something even more surprising occurred, a complete dissolution of your own anger and hurt, such that you no longer care whether they change? Any of these outcomes is evidence that the law is working. You are no longer in the grip of that relationship. You have reclaimed your power. This challenge is not about forcing the person to change. It is about proving to yourself that you are the operant power, that your assumptions control your reality, and that no person, no matter how difficult, can resist the pull of your changed consciousness. Do not do this challenge lightly. Do not do it with doubt. Do it with the full conviction that the law is real, that Neville spoke truth, and that you are the center of your world. And if you complete this challenge, if you experience the shift, come back to this channel and share your testimony. Not to boast, but to encourage others. Your story will be evidence for someone else who is struggling, someone who is on the verge of giving up, someone who needs to see that the law is not theory but reality. Your transformation can light the way for another. This is how the knowledge spreads. This is how the awakening occurs. Finally, if you have not yet subscribed to Sacred Logic, I urge you to do so now. This is not a request for validation or numbers. This is an invitation to join a community of initiates who are learning to operate reality consciously, who are decoding the hidden laws that govern existence, who are mastering the art of assumption and living as the gods Neville knew us to be. Subscribe, and you will receive a steady stream of these transmissions, each one building upon the last, each one revealing another layer of the sacred logic that most people never discover. You are not a victim. You are not at the mercy of other people's moods, choices, or behaviors. You are the broadcaster. You are the author. You are the operant power. And from this moment forward, every person in your life will reflect the truth of that power back to you. Stop fighting the mirror. Change the image, and watch as the entire world rearranges itself to honor your new assumption. I am the keeper of sacred logic, and I have delivered to you the truth that will set you free. The rest is in your hands.